Welcome to the What's Important Now broadcast. In America today, we are witnessing a cultural shift. This is the show devoted to the battle for the soul of our country. Join our host, Tom Sears, as he explains the issues of our day and join the fight to bring values and morality back. Let's join Tom now as he shares what's important now.
And welcome inside of this special edition of What's Important Now as we continue our American Destiny series. This is part 2 of the American Destiny series, and I want to welcome you inside. Our email address, what'simportantnowradio@gmail.com, what'simportantnowradio@gmail.com, and you can follow us on Facebook at Win Radio Show. I'm on Twitter, T Sears Win Radio, and our mailing address is 8901 Good Hope Pike, Lost Creek, West Virginia 26385. I want to continue on our journey of exposing socialism in America today, and I'm going to title this program The Installment Plan. Socialism, the Installment Plan. Now, in part 1 of our series, I told you that socialism, it's not a neighbor to the United States of America anymore, but rather it is sleeping in our house. Now, what I mean is that it's alive and well in our country. Now, ladies and gentlemen, America, well, we're at a crossroads. Now, whether you want to admit this or not, we are headed towards socialism. We can close our eyes and pretend. We can have this pipe dream that it's not happening, but it is. And we need to wake up. Because the younger generation in this nation is advancing the socialist cause. Now, here's the thing. They don't know any better because this is the idea that's being promoted to them through various avenues, through media, through education, and their peers. You know, higher education especially, promoting these ideas with far left socialist professors promoting ideas to tear down this country. Now, the strategy, as I said, is to provide socialism in an installment plan. This is a long-term plan. It's not a short-term plan. And it's a plan you need to know that will destroy this country as we know it. Socialism reaches beyond the economic repercussions in this so-called school of thought. But there are spiritual and political consequences as well. Now, Earl Browder, he's the former head of the Communist Party. He served during the 1930s to the early 1940s. And he described it this way, quote, "America is getting socialism on the installment plan through the programs of the welfare state. America may not be willing to vote for a program under the name of socialism, but put it under another party label, whether liberal, Republican, or Democrat, and they're by and large in favor of the idea. We have no real socialist party, no socialist ideology, but we have a large and growing degree of what 50 years ago would have been recognized as socialism." End of quote. Now, do you see how what he's saying is that if we can get this into a political platform and we disguise it as something else, and that is exactly what's happening. Earl Browder spoke those words in the late 1930s. And that's why I say it's a long-term plan. The country of the United States is without a doubt headed down the road of socialism. And again, it's being disguised. It's disguised in so many ways. It's disguised as equity. It's disguised as compassion. It's disguised as a new and vibrant way for our country to move forward, progressive. And it's being provided in an installment plan. So what is this installment plan? And it's vast. Okay, there's no way that in this 30-minute program we'll cover it all. but we're going to give you some. In a survey conducted by the University of Chicago, and this survey surveyed 18-year-olds to 34-year-olds, it found that 49% in this group hold a favorable opinion of capitalism, and then 45% have a positive view of socialism. I'm going to pause there for a second because this shows, again, provides more evidence of exactly where we are as a nation in every category. Think about it. This American Destiny series is going to focus on three main areas: economics, politics, and spirituality. And so when you take a look at those statistics, basically split down the middle, half of the country believes in capitalism, half of the country believes in socialism. It is divided. Now, the Bible says, and Abraham Lincoln said it during the Civil War, that a house divided against itself cannot stand. Of course, he was referring to the nation. And so the warning was set forth. The warning is very, very clear that we need to get together on some stuff. And if you look back at our founders, and I know they're a bad word anymore, but we're still going to talk about them here on the What's Important Now program. Anyway, if you look back at our founders, what you're going to find is that they had ideas. Imperfect people had ideas, and those ideas at times differed. But this nation was founded upon the concept of compromise. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't great, but the consensus was that it was to form a more perfect union. And when I say it was not great, we had flaws. Okay, let's all admit that. We had flaws. Slavery should have never, ever been. But it's deep. It's a deeper issue sometimes than how we just promote it. There were a lot of flaws that we had to start this country. And our founding fathers inherited a system. And you can go back to some early writings of how they had it in their heart to make changes. But what's happening today is our founders are being vilified. They're being ridiculed and torn down. And I'm going to get to that in a moment. But this is a nation that is divided. This is a nation that is split. And economically, are we going to go the road of capitalism, or are we going to go the road of socialism? Socialism is going to deal more with the political aspect of it. So, split down the middle. Now, let's look at some of the demographics. Socialism gets higher marks than capitalism from Hispanics, Asian Americans, and African Americans. 61% of Democrats take a positive view of socialism, and so do 25% of Republicans. And this is the scary thing, right? So a quarter of Republicans take a favorable view of socialism. Now, here's what you need to know. The installment plan is the plan. They want to give Americans socialism in small bites. And then over time, it will erode the concepts of the free market. And before you know it, socialism is the way of the nation. And ladies and gentlemen, we are well on our way. Now, one huge proponent of this idea is media. In a column in the New York Times dated August the 9th, 2018, written by two staffers from the Socialist magazine Jacobin, quote, "The subversion of democracy," they wrote, citing Madison and Federalist Number 10 as Exhibit A, was the explicit intent of the Constitution's framers. The Byzantine Constitution he helped create, they continued, served as the foundation for a system of government that rules over people rather than an evolving tool for popular self-government. These perspectives are vital at a time when many progressives regard the Constitution as our only line of defense against a would-be autocrat in the White House. In its place, they seek a new political system that truly represents Americans. Our ideal should be a strong federal government powered by a proportionally elected unicameral legislature. End of quote. The first response that I have is, what in the world did I just read? What in the world did you just hear? Please note, that's not just socialism they're promoting. It's a whole new type of government. They're trying to promote a whole new type of government, which, ladies and gentlemen, in last week's American Destiny series, part 1, when I begin to lay the foundation of this socialist agenda, I told you that ultimately the consequences will go past economics. There are political and spiritual consequences that follow. And the atmosphere is being created for this agenda. And that's why it's important to understand what our foundation is. And it's important. You know, the sad thing is, we no longer teach civics. We no longer teach true American history. And there's an agenda to remove it. Kids don't really need it. We'll start at the Civil War and move past that. Now, the agenda's there, and I'm going to break that down at some point of why we want to start right there. I'm just not going to do that today. But I will give you a glimpse. If we start right there, we start at a moment where, in the minds of the socialist, and there's truth to it, that we are correcting, I should say, a major flaw in our country, and that obviously is slavery. If you rewind and go back to the foundings of our nation, then you've also got to promote the idea of spirituality. You have to promote the role of God in our country. You have to promote the role of our citizens and their desire to grow and be free. And so if we start at the Civil War, we eliminate a lot of the foundation the country was built upon. And so, but we'll get to all that somewhere down the road. Okay. So again, you know, this idea is not to just promote socialism. It's to promote a whole new government, a whole new way of doing things. And folks, I got to tell you, it's working. And it's working because the extended arm of the agenda is the media. You know, the media promotes these ideas that are far left. They promote these ideas that are actually leading the cause, the charge, so to speak, of the agenda. Now, please notice, if you look at the media today, there is clear bias. Free and impartial journalism is dead, at least from what I can see. If you're not informed, you don't know if you're being told the truth or a lie. It's all biased. One side or the other. We can talk about fair and balanced, and we can talk about, honest journalism, and it's all a farce, ladies and gentlemen. Every single bit of it. It's a farce. It's dead. So we better inform ourselves on the truth, or we're just going to believe a lie. The Bible actually says we'll believe a lie and be damned. I believe that we could believe a lie in this country and walk ignorantly into the ways of this socialist agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, I know that it sounds crazy and it sounds far-fetched, but we're going to provide this evidence to you, for you, of what's happening in our country. It's going to rip it apart at its seams. I hate to sound so gloomy and doomy, but it's going to tear us apart. Because if we are split down the middle like we are, it's going to cause. You know, years ago, I started talking about America's next Civil War, and I said that it was not necessarily going to be fought the way the first Civil War was, but it was going to be fought over ideas. That war has begun, ladies and gentlemen. The idea war has begun. It's the new American Civil War. God help us to get on the same page. Even if we don't share all the same ideas, where is the respect for one another? Where is the willingness to compromise for the betterment of society and for the good of the people? The problem is we're so rooted in our ideology that we are not able to move or won't move from our positions. God help us. So, when we talk about the media being the extended arm of this agenda, Then we have to look at censorship. I cannot get over. And again, we just kind of go on. America just goes on. This is stuff you see in communist nations. You know, you take a look at North Korea. They control, the government controls all the media stories and everything that comes out, and to paint a picture as they want to paint it. I've watched documentaries on the lives of North Korean citizens, and I'll be honest with you, it is sad. It is sad. You challenge that government, well, you're going to cease to exist. And so, let's think about what's happening in America today. Censorship. Social media platforms are actually censoring political viewpoints that oppose their own agenda. Folks, we need to wake up. Socialism is in our house, and now it's sneaking into our bed. It's trying to get all warm and cozy up in here. God help us to wake up and see what is happening. I can't get over the censorship that's taking place. If we don't like it, we just delete it. Thus, to create a thought process that there is a video or a documentary or whatever you want to call it that is being promoted. A lot of people. It's called The Social Dilemma. It talks about what social media is doing in our country. You should check it out. I want to tell you this, that it doesn't take a documentary to understand what's happening. It doesn't take a documentary to see what's going on. We are being force-fed a bunch of lies, biased, hypocritical thought processes. We're being educated on all that's wrong. We're being told that good is evil and evil is good. I read that somewhere too. That's what's happening in our country today. And folks, if we don't wake up, if we don't get it together quick, well then, I'm not sure we're going to be able to make it back. And I say that with all sincerity, not to be, like I said, gloomy and doomy. If we don't have a course correction soon, there may be no correction. So the media is a part of this agenda, this installment plan, per se. But they're not the only part. Education is another area where the socialist agenda is being promoted, especially in higher education. Now, history is not taught the appropriate way anymore. Our national heroes, as I said, are vilified before our students and portrayed as these villains. Now, why is this important? And I need you to get this. If you've heard nothing else that I've said, I need you to hear this. It's important because if we can erode the heroic, patriotic image of our founders, then we can wipe away everything they did, everything they said, and everything they stood for. Because if their character as a person no longer matters in the public opinion, in the eye of public opinion, then they were wrong altogether. And their ideas were wrong altogether. And thus, our government is wrong altogether. And that leads to the agenda of change. Remember what I read to you from the Socialist contributors to the New York Times opinion article? They said the subversion of democracy was the explicit intent of the Constitution's framers. Give me a break. And they further go on to say that our ideal should be a strong federal government powered by a proportionally elected unicameral legislature. Now, the agenda of change. Think of it this way. To charge Madison and his colleagues with some sort of idea that they were going to put together a plan to actually tear down the very system they were constructing is absolutely insanity. It's insane. It's madness. It's crazy to think that's what was happening. And yet, this is what we teach. This is what people believe. That is why that age group, 18 to 34, our next leaders, have a favorable opinion of socialism because they have been taught all of this nonsense, this garbage. God help us. I can't say that enough. God help us. And the reality is that it is the solemn responsibility of our schools to educate young minds and ways for them to enable these students, the learner, to recognize that this is absolute nonsense and to reject it. But the truth is, it's not rejected. Just as our survey indicated, it's embraced. In an article for Fordham Institute, Chester Finn wrote, as for socialism, quote, as for socialism, any decent world history or comparative economics curriculum will include a close look at places where it's actually been tried and how well that did or didn't work. Where an authoritarian government forces it upon society, it seems to work for a while, but in time it leads to repression, famine, political prisoners, and more or less a total collapse of human rights. A truly socialist society in which everything gets decided, quote, democratically, even axiomatically, brings corruption and tyranny, end of quote. Ladies and gentlemen, the teaching of socialist ideas are promoted all across our country. And there's rarely a time when the negative consequences of socialism are provided to the learner. It's typically accompanied by tearing down of America's founders and the ideas that they established. The truth is that far too many people sit back today and ignore what's happening. For instance, some people started listening to this program and turned it off. Ladies and gentlemen, the destiny of America is in our hands. How we proceed matters. And I want to, I said at the end of part 1 that the destiny of America is in God's hands, and it is. Absolutely. But it's going to be the choices we make. That's why I say how we proceed matters. If we don't turn around now and find the right path, then we're destined for economic, political, and spiritual destruction. There's no avoiding that. Again, history teaches us that. The Bible teaches us that. And when I say turn back and find the right path, I am not in any way saying that we should go back and do some of the things that we have learned are mistakes. We should learn from those mistakes and make sure they never happen again. No person, no man, woman, boy, or girl should ever be in chains. Every person should have freedom. Freedom. It's a God-given right. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. Which, I don't want to get ahead of myself here. When we begin to examine the spiritual nature of America's destiny, you'll begin to see that we can tie into a loss of freedom as actually a loss of spirituality. You see, they work in the same. Where there's morals and values and virtue, there's freedom. And where those things don't exist, well, we'll get to that later. But the right path is not about undoing some of our correcting. The right path is to learn from the lessons of history so we're not repeated or we're not forced to repeat them. We're destined for economic, political, and spiritual destruction if we don't turn around. If we don't make the change. We're destined for it, ladies and gentlemen. You see, America was founded on the idea of limited government. The Bible teaches us to be very careful how we build on another's foundation. The house, that is the United States of America, well, the house is having its foundation removed. And the reason is because those who are forcing this socialist agenda in this installment plan, they realized they could not build upon the foundations that our founders laid. So now, it's time to tear it out. if they can tear down the foundation, they're getting smarter. Do you see it? They're getting smarter, ladies and gentlemen. They realize now the goal has to be to tear down our founders, to tear down the founders' ideals, to make them villains in the eyes of Americans. Because if they're villains, then the ideas that they promoted can't be good. If the founder that promoted the idea was evil, then the idea had to be evil. Do you see what I'm saying? They're getting smarter, and they're winning. Listen to me. They are winning. Let's quit this political rhetoric. Let's quit this idea of kumbaya, and let's realize they are winning. They are winning because good Americans who understand the truth say nothing, do nothing, but live and bask in the blessings that have been provided through this country. They say and do nothing. And as we sit back and do nothing, the agenda marches on. The critical problem that's facing us as a country is that government has broken loose from its foundation. It's now running wild with foreign ideas. And when I say foreign ideas, I mean ideas that are far different than what we have actually been established on. Don't label me a defeatist because when I say that they're winning, open your eyes, you'll see that I'm telling you the truth. The socialist agenda is winning. They are recruiting the young minds of Americans. And Abraham Lincoln once said, if you want to understand what the philosophy of government will be in the next generation, then you go to the classrooms. That will be the philosophy. Because as adults, we have a job to educate. And I'm not just talking about in school systems. I'm not talking about just higher education. I'm talking about in life. We have a responsibility to teach the right things. But if the right things have always been wrong, what in the world are you talking about, Tom? I'm telling you that what the agenda is today is to teach that what has always been right is now wrong. What has always been good is now evil. And what has been wrong is now right. And what was evil is now good. Open your eyes. We are losing this battle. We are losing this battle over ideals. And a house divided against itself cannot stand. We are on the brink of destruction. Notice how I hesitated and paused there. Because it hurts to say it. But I believe it. And I know if you will open your eyes and look into this, you'll believe it too. Thank you for listening to What's Important Now and this American Destiny series, Part 2, Socialism, the Installment Plan. More to come. We have so much more to go over. This has been literally months of research and study. Thank you for being here with us. Our mailing address is 8901 Good Hope Pike, Lost Creek, West Virginia, 26385. Our email address is whatsimportnowradio@gmail.com. I want to encourage you to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss anything. And if listening on Apple iTunes, make sure you give us a 5-star rating so that this message is promoted to more people. Fight the good fight of faith. Contend for the faith. There is a cause. It does matter. And it is important now. Until next time, I pray God's blessings upon you and upon this nation. Take care.
So